They declared me dead, held a memorial, read my obituary. And just when they thought they were free, I walked in and stood beneath the portrait they used to bury me. I was rinsing dishes when my phone buzzed. It was a soft vibration, the kind that usually means a missed email or a calendar reminder. I wiped my hands on a towel, glanced at the screen, and froze. Mrs. Langford. I hadn't seen that name in 3 years. Our old neighbor. The one with hydrangeas and a sharp eye for gossip. She used to sneak me lemon cookies over the fence when I was 10, and now here she was, sending me a video message with no context, no greeting, just one line. "I'm so sorry about your parents. I can't believe what I saw today." My stomach knotted. I tapped the video. The first frame was a church, or so I thought at first. But as the camera panned, I realized it wasn't. It was an art gallery, the Hale Legacy Gallery, our family's prized inheritance. I hadn't seen it in years, but the polished wood floors, the gold lettering on the wall, it was unmistakable. And then I saw them. My mother, Madeline, dressed in black lace, pearls gleaming against her collarbone. My father, Graham, stiff and stone-faced, reading from a paper. His hands shook just slightly. Behind them stood a display of flowers, white roses in spiraling towers. And next to that, my photo, framed, smiling, the one from college graduation. And beneath it, a plaque, in loving memory of Vivian Hale, 1989 to 2020. I couldn't breathe. My father's voice filled the room. She was always a troubled spirit, but we loved her deeply. We tried to reach her, but she was lost to us long before she was gone. He was giving a eulogy for me. I stumbled back against the sink, dishwater still dripping from my fingertips. My mouth moved, but no words came. I replayed the video once, twice, 5 times. Each time, the same flat sadness in their voices, the same measured sorrow. Fake. All of it. There were no tears, no tremble, just performance. My mother dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief like she was on stage. My father looked down at the podium like he'd rehearsed it. Behind them, people I recognized, sat in rows of folding chairs. Old neighbors, distant relatives, even my piano teacher, Mrs. Delacourt. All dressed in black, all believing I was gone. No one had called me, no one had checked. Not a single email, voicemail, text message. I was alive, and they had buried me. I leaned over the sink, shaking. My reflection in the faucet handle didn't even feel like me anymore. How do you process your own funeral when you're still standing? Then something darker crept in. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't grief talking. This was a choice. And choices have reasons. I stepped back from the sink and grabbed my phone again, eyes locked on the frozen image of my smiling face beside the words, "Gone but never forgotten." Except I was very much alive, and I'd just been forgotten on purpose. The camera panned upward one last time to the words painted high across the gallery wall, "A tribute to legacy." Legacy? I wasn't just dead. I'd been replaced. Dead people can't reset passwords. That's what the screen told me when I tried to log into my old email account. Account closed due to verification of deceased status. I blinked. Refreshed the page. Typed the credentials again. Same message. Somewhere in the bowels of a government server, a line of code believed I no longer existed. And someone had made that happen. That someone had to be family. I opened a new tab, heart pounding, and typed, "South Carolina death certificate search." I didn't expect results. But when I entered my full name and birthday, something came up. Certificate number, SC-91327. Name, Vivian Hale. Date of death, July 16th, 2020. Cause, overseas vehicular accident. Status, deceased. Verified issued by Charleston Vital Records Office. My blood turned to ice. They'd filed a legal death certificate. My legal death certificate. It wasn't just the photo in the gallery, or the eulogy, or the fake sorrow. This was on paper. Signed, stamped, official. I scrolled further. Next of kin? Elena Hale. Of course. My younger sister. The golden one. The prodigy. The one who never colored outside the lines until she did. And when she did, I was the one shoved into the fire. 3 years ago, $80,000 vanished from our family's gallery trust account. I remember the moment the numbers didn't add up when our accountant came storming in. I remember Elena's face, white as paper, and I remember my parents' decision not to protect her, not to fix the problem, but to blame me. Better one ruined daughter than two. You embarrassed us. You're no longer welcome here. They said it in that order, cold, like pronouncing sentence. I left the next morning. No goodbye, no money, no defense. And now, 3 years later, they'd made it official. They'd declared me dead. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, legally, digitally, systemically. I pressed my fingers to my temples and closed my eyes, trying to slow the spiral of thoughts. Because with death certificates come paper trails, wills, asset transfers, insurance claims. This wasn't about grief. This was about erasure. I reopened the certificate. There it was again. Overseas accident. I'd never been in one. Never owned a car while I was abroad. And yet someone had created that narrative, forged it, submitted it. And the state had believed it. I stood up, nearly knocking over the stool in my kitchen. My apartment suddenly felt small, like it was closing in. I needed air, answers, something. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Unknown number. No name. You weren't supposed to see that. My breath caught. I stared at the screen, then typed back 3 words. Who are you? No reply. Of course. They'd already decided I didn't exist. But now I knew better. I wasn't just grieving a family that buried me. I was about to unbury the truth. I used to think there was a limit to how alone a person could feel, that there was a floor, something solid beneath you when everything else was stripped away. But I was wrong, because there's a different kind of loneliness that comes when people don't just abandon you, they pretend you never existed. I sat on the edge of my bed, the fake death certificate still open on my laptop, and did what any desperate person would do. I called everyone who had ever once claimed to love me. Aunt Marjorie, my mother's sister, the one who used to sneak me extra slices of pumpkin pie and wink at me during boring Christmas speeches. She answered on the second ring. Hello, I swallowed. Aunt Marjorie, it's me, Vivian. Silence. Then a click. I stared at the phone. She'd hung up. I called again. This time, blocked. I tried my old childhood friend Olivia. We hadn't talked in years, but she was there when I got my first period. She held my hand in high school when Elena stole my prom dress and pretended it was hers. Her voicemail picked up. Hi, you've reached Liv. Leave a message and maybe I'll call you back. If you're lucky. I didn't leave a message. I didn't know what to say. I kept going. Names, numbers, faces I hadn't thought about in months. Every call rang out into a void. Some never answered. Others rejected outright. One cousin, Jordan, sent back a single emoji, thumbs up. Another replied, sick joke, don't contact me again. But one person, just one, hesitated. Sam, my youngest cousin, just turned 19. Always a little awkward, always looked up to me like I was some kind of superhero when we were kids. He once made me a bracelet from yarn and plastic beads that spelled out VIV rocks. His reply came 5 minutes later. Vivian, are you really alive? I stared at the message for a long moment before typing, yes. I need the truth. What did they tell everyone? The typing bubble appeared, then vanished, reappeared, vanished again. When the response came, it was one line. They said you died in a car crash overseas. There was no body. I blinked hard. Closed casket? Cremation? It all happened fast, he added. They said it was too late to bring you home. I nearly dropped the phone. I hadn't even owned a car. While I was abroad, I lived in small apartments, walked to work, took trains and buses. I'd filed taxes in 3 countries. I'd existed, but to them I'd been erased in a neat, poetic lie. dead overseas, too far gone to retrieve, cremated, gone. No messy questions, no uncomfortable explanations, just gone. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out my passport. I spread out the pages like a deck of cards. France, Canada, Thailand, Spain, stamped and dated, every trip accounted for. Then the lease agreements, pay stubs, immigration letters, time-stamped emails. I built a wall of proof, brick by brick. They didn't just want me forgotten, they needed me gone. And suddenly I wasn't just hurt, I was suspicious. What could possibly be worth this? I clicked open Instagram and typed the name I hadn't looked at in years, at Elena Hale official. And what I found felt like betrayal in diamonds. Grief has a color. I used to think it was black. But on Elena's Instagram, grief was champagne gold and ivory white. Her profile had gone public again, probably to showcase the wedding. And showcase she did. The first photo was a ring, oval cut, flawless, sitting in a pale pink velvet box beside a note. She said yes. The second was a wide shot of the Hale Gallery, our family's pride. Its marble floor shined like water, drenched in candlelight and florals. Rows of white chairs faced the stage where the ceremony had been held. But it was the third photo that stole the air from my lungs. A man, Elena's fiancé presumably, stood beside a podium, raising a glass in a toast. And next to him, my father, smiling, holding a microphone. He was mid-sentence, caught in the flash, head tilted with affection, wine glass lifted like a trophy. The caption below read, "To the one daughter who always made us proud." I stared at the screen. Not a single mention of me, not even a quiet nod. No "wish Vivian could be here." No "in memory of." It was like I'd been replaced. Not mourned, not missed. Replaced. I kept scrolling. The further down I went, the more twisted it became. Elena laughing in her rehearsal dress, my mother helping her with her veil, my father adjusting her bouquet, a sea of familiar faces in black tie, sipping cocktails and smiling for the camera, people who once told me I was the heart of the family. People who now posed under chandeliers, celebrating a version of life that erased me completely. And then came the worst one. A shot of the gallery's front entrance, taken at night. Above the doors, a brand new placard had been installed. The Hale Legacy Gallery. Dedicated to the memory of Vivian Hale, 1989 to 2020. Her light lives on through us. I felt like I was going to vomit. They were using my name. Not just to grieve, but to brand, to promote, to legitimize themselves. I tapped into the gallery's business filings. I still remembered the old login pathways. A few keystrokes, a couple public record searches, and it hit me like a slap. 6 months after my death, the trust fund that my grandfather had left specifically for me had been reassigned to Elena. The startup money, the travel grants, the estate share, all of it. Quietly, legally. She hadn't mourned me. She had inherited me. The rage didn't come all at once. It simmered, coiled beneath my ribs like steam under a sealed lid. They could grieve. They could toast. They could even rename the damn gallery. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I was still alive. And now, I had the receipts. Literal, legal, government-stamped receipts. Let's see them mourn that. The printer clicked and groaned like it knew it was creating something dangerous. One by one, the pages slid out. Passport scans, tax returns, apartment leases, international flight itineraries. All proof that I had not only been alive for the past 3 years, but traceable, trackable, provable, undeniable. I spread them out across my small dining table like evidence at a murder trial, except the victim was me. The crime? Existence theft. I made a checklist. Proof of life, paper trail, financials, photos, emergency contacts, signed affidavits from past employers. I took a breath, then a second. I was done being buried. It was time to rise. Legally. That afternoon, I walked into the only downtown law firm I could find that didn't look like it catered to men named Charles who golf on Wednesdays. I didn't care about prestige. I cared about precision. The woman at the front desk barely looked up. Do you have an appointment? No, I said, but I have a death certificate with my name on it and a government ID that says I'm alive. That got her attention. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from a junior associate in a conference room that smelled like printer ink and lemon disinfectant. He couldn't have been older than 30, with wide eyes and a nervous energy that screamed first big case. I slid the death certificate across the table, then my passport, then the stack of documents I'd brought. He didn't speak for a full minute, then, You're challenging your own death? I'm not dead, I said, but I plan to haunt them. He blinked, then nodded. We'll start with a fraud complaint, he said carefully, then a motion to revoke the declaration of death. It'll take time, weeks, maybe months, but we can restore your legal identity. I leaned in. I don't have months. He looked confused. I opened my phone, pulled up the anonymous message I'd received, and placed it face up on the table. They're hosting your memorial this Sunday, 3 p.m. Hale Legacy Gallery. His eyebrows rose. I want to be there, I said. Alive. A pause. Then the smallest twitch of a smile tugged at his lips. Okay, he said. Then let's make that memorial memorable. I left the office with a manila folder and a fire in my chest. They dressed me in lies. They buried me in silence. Now I had a funeral to attend. Resurrection doesn't come with miracles. It comes with paperwork. A week after walking into that law office, I was sitting in front of a notary public, signing a document that began with the line, Petition to revoke presumed death declaration. It sounded like something out of a ghost novel, except it was real. And I was the ghost. We'd filed the fraud complaint, gathered the affidavits. My attorney, Sam Linwood, barely 30 but razor sharp, had moved fast, faster than I expected. You're lucky, he told me. It usually takes longer to open a reversal like this. Lucky? I asked. He smirked. Well, it helps when the deceased walks in holding a passport and rental history. The court had agreed to an expedited motion. The case would be reviewed in the coming weeks. But for now, I had something even more powerful than a ruling. A signed affidavit confirming I was alive. It wasn't everything, but it was enough to walk back into the world legally breathing. I held the paper in my hands, the embossed seal catching the light. There it was. Black ink, official signature. Date and timestamp. Vivian Hale. Living. Confirmed. It was surreal. For 3 years, I had existed in limbo, alive in body, erased on paper. But now the system, the same one that had declared me gone, was beginning to recognize the mistake. Or rather, the manipulation. You've got your name back, Sam said. Not officially in every system yet, but we're on the path. I looked up at him. Good, because I've got somewhere to be. He paused, lips pursed. The memorial. I nodded. He hesitated, then leaned forward. Vivian, are you sure? I mean, walking into that room, it's not just legal anymore, it's emotional. It's public. That's the point, I said. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Then walk in with this. He handed me a sleek red folder. Inside, the affidavit, a printed death certificate, and our fraud motion cover page. I'll be on standby, he added. Just in case they try anything regrettable. I gave him a small smile. They already did. That night, I stood at the window of my apartment. The city outside pulsed with life. Horns, neon, steam curling from sidewalk grates. I looked down at it all and felt calm, focused. They had built a story without me, buried me in prose and photographs, held a funeral for someone they chose to forget. But stories can be rewritten, and this time I was the narrator. The phone buzzed once, no name, just a single message. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. Don't be late. Silence hits differently when you're the ghost walking in. The Hale Legacy Gallery had never looked so theatrical. White roses spilled out of tall vases near the entrance. A string quartet played something slow and reverent. Every detail was curated. Grief, manufactured. I stood across the street, hidden behind dark sunglasses and a black wool coat. The same gallery where I used to sketch by the office window was now dressed in mourning. For me, cars lined the block. Audis, Teslas, a vintage Porsche I recognized as Uncle Randall's. The parking lot overflowed with Charleston's most polished guests, investors, family friends, board members, all of them here for the memorial of a woman who wasn't even dead. At precisely 2:57 p.m., the heavy glass doors closed. Let the show begin. I didn't move at first. I watched, waited, let them settle into their illusion. Inside, I could already imagine the performance unfolding. My mother with her perfect sobs, Elena clutching pearls like they were keeping her heart together. My father reading carefully rehearsed lines. I pictured it all. And then I crossed the street. Each step clicked against the pavement like a metronome counting down to impact. 3, 2. The doors opened. No one noticed me at first. The gallery was dim, candlelit. The music stopped. A priest, yes, they'd actually brought in a priest, stood near the stage. He raised his hands. Let us now stand for a moment of silence in memory of Vivian Hale. Everyone rose, heads bowed, eyes closed. And I stepped forward. The gallery doors groaned as they shut behind me. A gust of cold air followed, curling through the room like a whisper. Every head slowly turned toward the sound. Click, click, click. My heels echoed across the marble floor like gunshots in a church. I didn't rush. I let the silence stretch. Then it began. A child's voice somewhere near the back gasped, "Mom! Isn't that her?" Eyes widened. Hands dropped from folded positions. A woman clutched her chest. The priest took a full step back. I kept walking. Past the portrait of me they'd hung above a sea of lilies. Past the blown-up obituary. Past the slideshow looping pictures of a life remembered. I didn't stop until I reached the edge of the stage. My father's wine glass slipped from his hand. It shattered on the tile. My mother blinked once, twice, then crumpled to the ground in what could only be described as a practiced faint. Elena froze, her knuckles white around the stem of a champagne flute. Her lips parted, but no words came. The room was airless. I took off my sunglasses. Dozens of eyes locked on mine, some in disbelief, some in terror. And I smiled. Because ghosts don't knock. They walk in. I stood beneath my own portrait, the same one they used in the obituary. I remembered the day it was taken. I was smiling for real back then. My hair was longer. My mother had picked the dress, back when she still pretended to love me in public. How poetic that they'd use it to bury me. I turned to face the room. Dozens of eyes stared at me like I'd crawled out of a crypt. Some guests held phones midair but forgot to press record. Others just froze, clutching purses, wine glasses, each other. I cleared my throat once. It was all I needed. I heard I died. Murmurs spread like wildfire. But I'm here to correct the story. Silence again. There was no car crash, no overseas accident, no closed casket because there was no body. Because I never died. I pulled the red folder from my coat. It felt warm in my hands, heavy with truth. These are my passport stamps. My tax returns, employment records, apartment leases, all dated, all verified. I've been alive, I've been working, I've been surviving. I looked directly at my parents. The only thing I lost was you. My father didn't speak. My mother sat motionless in her chair, pretending to be faint or maybe wishing she still could. Then I turned to Elena. She didn't flinch, but her grip on her champagne glass faltered. They told the world I died, I continued. Filed a forged certificate. Held this ceremony. And while everyone was mourning, I held up a single page. They transferred my trust, my inheritance, my life. I stepped closer to the stage. People began whispering. She's got proof. That's the real Vivian. Is this Liv? A phone camera light blinked red from the third row. Good. Let them record it. To the one daughter who always made you proud, I said, nodding toward Elena. You gave her everything you stole from me. Elena opened her mouth. I cut her off. Don't bother. The ink is already dry. And the internet never forgets. Someone gasped. Another phone lifted. Behind me, the slideshow flickered. The photos of my childhood face were still playing. But now, reality was catching up to fiction. You didn't lose a daughter, I said, eyes locked on my father. You deleted her. A beat, then another. No one moved. The silence was colder than the air. Then, click. A champagne flute tipped, shattered on the gallery floor. And with that, the illusion cracked. This wasn't a memorial anymore. It was a crime scene. The gallery no longer looked like a place of mourning. It looked like a courtroom. Phones were out. Whispers turned to murmurs. Guests stepped back from my parents like they were radioactive. I watched the illusion collapse in real time, like watching a house of cards breathe its last. My father tried to speak. Vivian, sweetheart, this isn't the time. I cut him off. The time was 3 years ago when you decided a signature was easier than a conversation. He flinched. I stepped forward, lifted the page again, the death certificate. Its red seal gleamed under the gallery lights like a brand of shame. You filed this, you signed this, you told the world your daughter was gone. I turned toward the crowd holding it high. But this was forged. And this morning, a court received a fraud complaint with both your names on it. Gasps rippled across the room. One man in the front row, our former estate attorney, stood up and walked out without a word. Another guest pulled her phone out and started filming steadily. Elena stepped toward me, face pale but jaw clenched. You don't understand. No, I snapped. You don't. I held up another document. Gallery transfer records. 6 months after my death, you signed for the trust. Grandfather's estate. The gallery share. You took every dollar intended for me. I didn't. You did. Legally, quietly, without challenge. Because the one person who could stop you had been declared dead. She froze. My mother stood now, finally breaking her silence. Vivian, please. This is a misunderstanding. We were grieving. We thought you threw me out of your house. You blocked my number. You watched me walk away and never once looked back. I turned back to the room. Grief didn't do this. Greed did. At that moment, I saw movement at the edge of the gallery. A man in a dark suit whispered to the gallery manager. She nodded, turned toward the podium, and cleared her throat. Due to recent developments, the Hale family's access to gallery assets is being temporarily suspended pending legal investigation. A wave of tension rolled through the space. Elena's hand dropped from her necklace. My father's face went white. The manager continued, eyes avoiding mine. Until further notice, Ms. Vivian Hale is to be reinstated as a beneficiary and silent partner in accordance with original estate documents. The silence that followed felt like thunder. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I simply stepped down from the stage and walked past my mother, my father, my sister, each of them now standing in the ruins of their own deception. They hadn't lost a daughter. They'd gambled her existence. And now, they were bankrupt. Sometimes you have to die in their world, to live in your own. 3 days after the memorial, I sat in Sam's office again. The same lemony scent. The same humming fluorescent lights. But everything had changed. He slid the final form across the table. Confirmation of identity restoration. A single page. But it carried the weight of everything they'd taken. All systems are updated, Sam said, flipping through the file. Your social security number is reactivated. Voter registry, tax profile, bank access. You're back. I signed my name in blue ink. Not just a signature, a resurrection. He smiled. So, what now? I didn't answer right away, because I wasn't sure if he meant legally, emotionally, or existentially. What do you do when you've come back from the dead? Not to seek revenge, but to reclaim yourself. That evening, I returned to the gallery. It was quiet now. No guests, no music, just white walls, hollow and echoing, like a house that had been emptied of its secrets. They'd cleared out the portrait. The flowers were gone. But the plaque was still there near the front. The Hale Legacy Gallery? I stared at the word legacy. The way it tried to hold meaning. The way they used it to write me out. And then I pulled a pen from my bag. Nothing fancy, just a black felt tip. I leaned in, and beneath the engraved line, I wrote, "Truth is its own inheritance." Then I left. Not angry, not triumphant, just free. Later that week, Clara, the journalist friend from childhood I hadn't spoken to in years, called me. She had been at the memorial. She'd recorded everything. She'd also seen enough corruption stories to know when something big was about to explode. "The clip's already hit 3 million views, Liker," she said. "The internet loves a ghost story with receipts." "It's not a ghost story," I replied. "It's a survival story." "Same thing, really." She paused. "You okay, Viv?" I looked out the window of my new apartment, sunlight hitting the glass just right, the water beyond it sparkling like something alive. "Yeah," I said softly. "For the first time in a long while, I think I am." That night, I took a walk along the waterfront. The wind was cool, crisp, filled with salt and motion. Every step I took felt like stitching myself back into the world. Not the one they built, the curated one, but the one I chose. I thought about the version of me they tried to bury. Obedient, malleable, silent. She died. And I was glad she did, because the woman walking now was something else entirely. The sky above me was wide open. No ceiling, no stained glass, just stars. And me, alive not by accident, but by choice. The gallery lights dimmed behind me, because sometimes justice doesn't come with a bang. It comes with a transfer of power. There's something shattering about realizing the people who raised you can also choose to erase you. For me, it wasn't just the betrayal, it was the silence. The way no one asked, no one doubted, no one checked. It's one thing to be abandoned. It's another to be replaced. I spent years thinking maybe I'd overreacted, that maybe if I'd reached out one more time, things would have changed. But some doors don't creak, they slam. And staying quiet doesn't earn you love. It just trains people to ignore your absence. Coming back wasn't about vengeance, it was about truth, about identity, about standing in the same room where they tried to mourn me and reminding them, I'm still here. If you've ever been cast aside, written out, or told you were too much for simply existing, this story is for you. We don't always get closure, but sometimes we get to write the final chapter ourselves. Alive, clear-eyed, and louder than their silence. Thank you for watching Vivian Hale's story. If this story hit you hard, like it did for us, please like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Have you ever felt erased, underestimated, or replaced? Drop your story below. We read every comment. Make sure to subscribe for more cinematic, true-to-heart storytelling. And remember, your voice has power, even if they tried to silence it.